Super Rugby has started and South Africa has a long road.
Let's burn through that.
I'm Dax.
And I'm Nick.
And this is the Call Room, our YouTube rugby chat channel.
So, we saw two games this weekend, both taking place in South Africa. And let's just start this off quickly and say, wow, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah. Look, we can't really take much from the first games of the Super Rugby season, but judging from what we saw this weekend, there's a lot that still has to be done for South African rugby.
So let's just quickly go through them. Starting with the Stormers versus the Jaguares at Newlands this past Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so it was a very good game generally overall. Again, we called it. Discipline was very, very poor. Not only from the Jaguares side, but from the Stormers as well, finishing at 28-20.
It only took the Jaguares 27 minutes to rack up their first card of the season though. So, I mean, that is slightly better than last season, I think. But one thing that really stuck out for me was the overall set pieces were not working well for the Stormers.
No, Stormers lineup was struggling throughout the game. You can see impact players like Eben Etzebeth and Peter Step-Toy not being there had a huge influence on the game.
The scrum was also not as steady without those two powerful locks in the engine room, but they did pull it together towards the end of the game.
Even winning a penalty 5 meters out from our own try line in a very clutch situation.
The Jaguares' defensive line wasn't great. They kept allowing too many breaks.
Yeah, Jaguares' defensive lines do generally need some work. However, their scramble defense has proven to be very good, and they did show that this weekend as well. A lot of the influential players actually took a step up and actually put the Stormers under pressure in the second half, where the Stormers' discipline took a knock rather than the Jaguares.
And we got to talk about the Stormers letting go of that lead. Allowing a penalty try as well, that is just not on, especially against the New Zealand opposition later in the season.
No, going 22-6 to basically 22-20 before we closed it out with two penalties is not the way to go. And that just goes to show we need to retain the ball and we need to actually work with the ball in hand. We can't keep giving these like soft turnovers at all, which is basically what happened. However, there were some real positives. We got to see Raymond Rule score a really good try for us in his first game in a Stormers jersey.
And he made a tackle. Let's not forget about that. He made a tackle.
He made some good tackles. The props worked really hard this weekend. Captain Courageous Siakalisi led from up front.
He's a standout player of the team, definitely.
Yeah, so there's a lot of positives to come out of this game. Again, we're going to see Jaguares hampered by their discipline, a lot of the off-the-ball stuff, and again, it's going to cost them, especially if they can't get it under control this early in the season.
Well, interestingly, it was actually the Stormers had a little off-the-ball incident this week.
That they did. Keep cool head, Stormers, because you're traveling next week, and you've got a long road ahead of you.
So let's move on to the second game, Lions versus Sharks at Ellis Park, Emirates Airline Park.
Well, what can I say? This was going to be the game of the weekend, having the Lions host the Sharks, and both of them having a very similar game style.
What we have to first outline is that the Lions scrum was huge.
They were very dominant this time around. However, any team that has Malcolm Marx as your hooker is definitely going to push a few scrums back.
But let's not take away credit where it's due, because the Lions scrum was 40 kgs lighter than the Sharks pack.
No, they definitely are very, very well conditioned, and they did scrum well overall. However, there is something that we're going to bring up later on, which might have to be looked at down the road.
It's also interesting considering that the Sharks' traditional base of strength is their scrum. You look at their front row and it's consistently been a Springbok front row. Why not this weekend? I have no idea what Rob Dupré was thinking. That's the coach. But not starting the Beast, especially after their scrum stabilised while he was on the field.
No, definitely. The Beast Tairira did make a huge impact off the bench, which is kind of what Dupré was going for. Maybe even resting his number one spearhead for the props. A little bit of a break before they go into some heavier contests. Another thing is the Dupré twins weren't featured this much, Jean-Luc being injured, and unfortunately Dan Dupré going off with a dislocated shoulder.
Or fractured collarbone. have to see, wait and
We'll have
see
to
what
see.
that is.
Yeah.
The Lions line-out wasn't up to scratch.
No, I think if I recall, out of their 16 lineouts, they lost at least 5 or 6 of those. And that was largely due to Ruan Buerta from the Sharks interrupting their lineout throws.
Couple of skew feeds from Marks, but we always knew that his line-out throwing isn't his best quality, but he has power everywhere else on the field, and he was one of the standout players of the game.
He was highly influential and he was everywhere, and is definitely dominant at the breakdown where it really, really counts. The Sharks, not taking anything away from them, a few standout players include Lucanio The guy had an absolute stellar game for me in terms of just his game sense. This guy knows where he needs to be and how to get there. He puts players into gaps where it really, really counts. He's definitely one of the first people that I'm going to say is in line for a Springbok start this year.
Also, Rob du Preez, I think he won Battle of the Fly Halves against his Springbok counterpart Elton Jantjies.
Look, not taking anything away from Jantjies. However, in a Lions jersey, Jantjies is influential. Robert du Preez, having shown for the Stormers and the Sharks what a level head he is and how he can attack the game line, he's definitely going to be a shoe-in or a potential Springbok in the near future.
It's going to be an interesting battle that faces out between Rob du Preez, Elton Jantjies, Pat Lambie, and even Cohen Bosch.
And even Andre Pollard. There's a lot of very good fly halves coming out and coming through this year, so hopefully we'll see them like earning their stripes, and let's actually see if we can get our Henry Honeyball that we've all been wanting for the last 10-15 years.
So that Lions 22nd minute try, that was move of the game, of the weekend for me even. Superb team effort with the hands, and then that individual brilliance from the number 11 to chip ahead and chase his own kick.
That is the try of the weekend for me as well. However, there were some really, really good tries this weekend, funny enough. We had for the Stormers, Damien Dialendi taking a really good running line, getting the ball at pace, breaking a few defenders' lines, and scoring a really good try.
Rob du Preez also had his great line where he just ran through 3 defenders as well and scored a try on that.
Sia Khaleesi also with his try, taking off a few defenders and shaking them off before he got darted over the line.
What's interesting is for South African rugby is that all these tries we're mentioning were running tries.
Yeah, so here it is, South Africa. Keep ball in hand and run with it. Choose some really good running lines and you can break a few defenders.
Now, something that's a bit controversial is there was a clear replay of Rob du Preez having a head collision with a Lions player, and not a single medical staff or coach took him off for a head injury assessment.
Yeah, head injuries are a serious condition that we actually need to keep an eye out for. So please guys, if you play rugby yourselves, please watch it and make the call yourself actually if you've had a head clash. Really, it's not good at all to have any form of head injury, and it could actually hamper your game or even create even more serious conditions further down the line for you. Having said that, in the Stormers Jaguars games, we had a few players actually taken off by the medical staff for head collisions. So it's really a tale of 2 different games here.
Now let's look at the refs. I think it's a great little time to take let's ignore this blunder. It's a great time to break away and actually look at how the matches were managed by the officials. As we said in our first episode, we're going to introduce a little ref rating system. We will keep a running tally of average scores over the seasons. So right now we only have 2 refs to talk about, but let's get stuck into it.
So for the first game we had Jaco Paper of South Africa. Overall, I think he had a very good game. He got our official 8 out of 10 rating for the match. There were a few things that he did miss. I would like to point out one was a possible obstruction during the Jaguars try that led one of the Stormers players not being able to tackle the player with the ball. However, overall, there's not much that I can fault Jaco Paper on. There was probably the scrum feed, but that's going to be a debatable one for the rest of the year.
For me, one thing I have to knock Paper down on is when he was looking at the possible early tackle on Damian Willemse. He did not officially call for the TMO. In fact, his exact wording was, can I see that replay again, please? This is something that was debated on last year, at least within Supersport Studios, that the refs are taking too much power into their own hands. They're not using the official channels. So that's maybe something that needs to be looked at again this year, and actually the TMO does need to be called into action officially, rather than a little impromptu, can I see that replay?
In line with the referee, I would actually like to see the linesman and the TMO, when they see stuff, actually call it out as soon as they see it. The reason for this is, yes, we understand that the referees are human, but for serious infractions or in instances which can lead to player injuries and that type of thing, we actually need all eyes on the park, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed by World Rugby, especially before the World Cup.
Glenn Jackson, Kiwi ref.
Yeah, New Zealand ref for those of you who don't understand the Kiwi reference. But Glenn Jackson overall had a very good game. There's not much that we can really fault him for. However, there were a few high tackles missed in open play.
Grabbing around the neck in one instance he didn't blow for.
Yeah, which leads back to the TMO and the linesman actually making those calls, because the ref is, as we've said, human. However, he also missed a few scrum feeds, a little bit on the skew side, and some of his breakdown calls were 50-50 at best.
But again, Southern Hemisphere refs only getting used to the new laws now. This might take a few rounds of Super Rugby to actually get a clear consensus about how to blow for these things.
Yeah. Again, what we were referring to early on in the episode regarding the Lions scrum, it was 50-50 for me in parts, considering that yes, they did have the dominance going forward. However, I did note on a few occasions where the loosehead actually scrummed in and changing his line. However, it's the referee's call at that point. It's just something that I've picked up, and maybe what should actually be reviewed somewhere down the line, where the props have to keep their line and not change at all in dominance.
So what's happening this weekend?
So we officially start with the extended Super 15 with the Australian and New Zealand conference players actually coming into the fold. So starting us off next week Friday, we'll have the Highlanders versus the Blues.
Highlanders at home, very strong team. They made the final 3 seasons ago, I think it was. Blues, they have the potential of being good. However, they really live up to this potential. They often lose it in careless situations against New Zealand opposition. However, against South African and Australian opposition, they seem to fire on all cylinders and demolish.
Well, let's look at it this way. The New Zealanders against opposition players are generally considered the stronger teams throughout the World Rugby. So, Highlanders versus Blues. Again, the Blues were last year's wooden spooners for the New Zealand conference. I don't think they give the Highlanders too much of a headache. However, it will probably be a close game, seeing as it is the first game for both teams this season. But we'll give the Highlanders the benefit of the doubt on home play.
I'd say probably about 3 to 7 points.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game. Too close for me to call.
Rebels versus Reds, Australian derby.
Yeah, so the Rebels have probably benefited the most from the disbandment of the
Western Force, yes.
Western Force. So they've got a lot of good players coming up through their ranks, and a lot of very good players from the Waratahs from previous seasons. I don't see the Reds giving the Rebels too much of a problem this year, but it's probably going to be one of those close games where it is probably within 5 to 7 points.
So with the Rebels at home, and given that the Reds have that ability to underperform against some weaker opposition, I'm going to give it to the Rebels, maybe by 5 points.
Yeah, so Rebels win this week.
A really tough one to call. Sunwolves versus Brumbies.
Well, let's look at it this way. The Japanese team have been the wooden spooners overall for the last 2 Super Rugby conferences overall, meaning they have generally been the team dominated by everyone.
In fact, they had a record defeat of 90 points last season.
So yeah, tough call going up against Australia's Brumbies, who we actually said were our number 1 pick out of the Australian conference.
Although, to be fair, the Sunwolves did beat more New Zealand opposition than the entire Australian conference last season.
Yeah, so hopefully the Sunwolves have some good signings this year. Maybe their team culture has improved. Let's see what happens, considering the Japanese are actually hosting the World Cup next year. So hopefully Japanese rugby has put more involvement and more investment into the Sunwolves team. However, I don't think they're going to beat a very, very strong Brumbies team.
I would have to say Brumbies by 14 minimum.
Look, I'm going to say at least between 10 to 14 points on it. However, I'd like to see the Sunwolves actually put up a bit of a fight. Hopefully they can make it a closer game.
Okay, now we're into the real tough one. Crusaders versus Chiefs.
Okay, as we said in a previous video, Crusaders and Chiefs are our top two for the New Zealand Conference, considering both have won Super Rugby in the last 3 years.
It's really going to be 50-50 call on this one. In fact, I don't think we can decide on this.
We can't at all. Even though the Crusaders are at home, the Chiefs are a really, really strong team. Both teams are like for like in terms of forward and backs.
Yeah.
Both play a very similar type of rugby game. It boils down to who just comes up to, who's going to show up on the day, basically. Hopefully we'll probably see a very close 5 to 7 point game. Might even be 3 points. It basically boils down to who gets to those clutch scenarios.
So who's going to win? Well, we have no idea, so we're going to flip a coin. So I'm going to say heads for Crusaders, tails for Chiefs. See you, Lady Luck.
We got heads.
Crusaders it is, by 2 points, 3 points.
I'll say 3 to 5.
Okay. Waratahs versus Stormers. Now, we disagree on this one. I think Stormers, they're travelling to Australia. It's a good 20-hour flight minimum. Jet lag, it's about 10 time zones difference. They've just played, so they might be a little fatigued, a little bit of niggles here and there. Whereas the Waratahs are fresh. They're generally a strong team in Australia. We did say in our first episode that they have the potential of being top of the Australian Conference. So I think I'm going to, my brain says I'm going to go for the Waratahs just based on the Storm's performance this weekend. It was too sloppy at times to really, if I'm stressing the if here, the Stormers get their act together, then they might have a shot at this game. But right now I'm going Waratahs by 6 or 7.
I must say, my heart is with the Stormers, being a Stormers boy. However, it is going to be a close game. However, being a professional game nowadays, the time zones don't really matter that much anymore, considering the amount of rest and how managed they are with their training leading up to a game. However, Waratahs are at home, and this is the Stormers' first tour game of the season. We've just come off a very, very hard game against the Jaguars, but I'd like us to actually start off our tour with a win, because with the 2 New Zealand Conference games coming up after that, I think we need this one to build our confidence for the tour ahead.
It's not being impartial there at all with the personal pronouns, eh?
No, not at all.
Okay, Lions versus Jaguars. I'm going to go here, Lions. They're playing at home at Emirates Airline Park. Again, Jaguars, sorry. Oof, my Saxonization of their team name is shocking. Yeah, Lions at home. Jaguars is disciplined. Probably going to creep in again. Altitude shouldn't affect them that much, considering Argentina is quite high up there in the altitude.
Yep.
But again, I think it's going to come down to discipline. In fact, I'm going to lay down the marker saying that they'll get a yellow card in the first 28 minutes.
Well, let's see how the discipline goes this week again. Jaguars, they are going to be the side that we are going to look to be the wooden spooners for the conference. And I'm pretty sure the Lions are going to put them away quite comfortably. Look, we don't want to see strong sides taking out teams where players are being sent off. However, we expect the Lions to capitalize on that. They're definitely going to have a better game management and a lot better game sense. So we're probably going to see the Lions pull through, probably with a 14 to 21 point margin, because generally their attacking rugby has been really good. Their scrum from this week is definitely, hopefully, going to pull through against the Jaguars again. We're going to see a lot of scrum penalties probably coming up this week. Probably also going to see a lot of breakdown penalties with the Jaguars. Discipline obviously going to fail them again.
And again, the game of the weekend, at least for me personally, the Bulls versus the Hurricanes. My heart screams to the Bulls to win this one. Hopefully John Mitchell coming in, we're going to have a turnaround season this year. But this is the Hurricanes. My head is telling me My heart is being ambitious. I need to calm down a bit and actually look at this properly. Hurricanes are a really strong team in the New Zealand Conference. You've got the Severe brothers, you've got the Barrett brothers as well in that team, all power players. So I have to say that unless John Mitchell has worked absolute miracles at the Bulls in the preseason, I'm going to have to go Hurricanes, probably by 10 points minimum.
Yeah, Hurricanes are definitely a force to be reckoned with at the present moment. However, we've seen this from the Bulls faithful before. A lot of the support is going to have a huge impact on the game. Normally the Bulls are very strong at home. However, last year was really a tough season for them.
Don't remind me.
Only winning 4 of their conference games. However, new coach, fresh ideas. John Mitchell's a New Zealander himself. We'll see what's injected into the Bulls team. I'd actually like to see the Bulls change their mindset a little bit. Pre-season, we did see some glimmers of really good potential. The Bulls have some really good attacking backs. Warren Gallant being one of the star players at fullback. I'd like to see him getting some line breaks. Get that again, the fly halves and the scrum halves, putting him into some space, because he can do some damage from the back.
So that's basically what we expect to see this weekend. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying what you're seeing, and comment on any feedback you could give us. Maybe some crazy things we could do in the next episode, what you'd like to know about the game. If you want to learn anything really, we're taking a lot of assumptions into play that they know everything about rugby. So maybe we can work in a video every now and again to teach rugby.
Your feedback is welcome, and it definitely will help grow this channel, especially because we are rugby fanatics and we love talking about the game. If there's something that we don't know, we will look into it, and we'd actually appreciate some questions, anything like that. So yeah, help us grow, and we would like to have your involvement as we grow in the next couple of episodes. In actual fact, we will probably hold a Q&A in the coming weeks just for your general questions, and hopefully we can answer them for you.
So thank you for watching the video, and stay tuned.
Thank you very much. Bye.